My name is Evelyn, and I am 28 years old now, but the memories of my childhood in a small town in the middle of the Great Plains stay with me like a scar that never quite fades away. Growing up in a small Midwestern town in the United States of America means that everyone knows your business, or at least they think they do. Our town was the kind of place where the summer heat felt like a heavy wet blanket draped over your shoulders, and the sound of cicadas in the trees was loud enough to drown out your own thoughts. To the neighbors, we looked like a normal family, but behind the peeling white paint of our farmhouse lived a nightmare that went by the name of my older sister Sarah. Sarah was 3 years older than me, and she was the son that our entire household revolved around mainly because if we did not give her what she wanted, she would burn us all to the ground. My mother worked long shifts as a nurse at the county hospital, and my father had left when I was just a toddler, leaving behind nothing but a sense of resentment that Sarah carried like a weapon. She blamed the world for his absence, but she took all of that anger out on me. I was her favorite target because I was younger and smaller, and because I still had a little bit of hope left in my eyes that she wanted to extinguish. For years, I lived in a state of constant fear where I had to walk on eggshells just to avoid being the focus of her next outburst. She was a master of the physical and emotional attack. She would pinch the back of my arms until they were purple and blue, and she would whisper the most horrible things about how I was the reason our father left, or how nobody would ever love a girl as ugly as me. The worst part was how she treated our family dog, a sweet golden retriever named Buster. One afternoon, I was sitting on the porch floor brushing Buster and feeling a rare moment of peace when Sarah came home from school. She saw the smile on my face, and I watched her eyes turn cold. She walked over and grabbed Buster by the collar so hard that he whimpered, and she dragged him away into the garage, locking the door behind her just because she could not stand to see me happy. That was the day I realized that Sarah was not just a mean sister, she was a monster. By the time I was 12 years old, I had learned that fighting back physically was a losing game. If I ever tried to push her away or defend myself, she would scream at the top of her lungs until our mother came running, and then Sarah would transform into a sobbing victim, claiming that I had attacked her for no reason. Our mother was always too tired to investigate, and she usually ended up grounding me or making me apologize to the person who was actually hurting me. I learned that silence was my only shield, but inside that silence, I was building a furnace of hatred. One particular week in July, when the humidity was so high you could practically see the water hanging in the air, Sarah was being more cruel than usual. She was 17 and felt like she owned the world because she had a group of popular friends and a ticket to a massive outdoor country music concert that was happening that weekend. This concert was the biggest event of the year for the teenagers in our town, and Sarah had been talking about it for months. She bought a new denim skirt and a pair of expensive boots that she made me polish until they shone like mirrors. Every time she walked past me that week, she found a reason to hurt me. On Monday, she dumped a glass of iced tea on my head while I was doing my homework. On Tuesday, she hid my favorite book and told me she had thrown it in the trash. On Wednesday, she tripped me in the kitchen and laughed while I scraped my knees on the linoleum floor. I did what I always did, which was to pretend to cry and run to my room. I knew that seeing my tears made her feel powerful, and once she felt she had won, she would leave me alone for a few hours to go watch television in the basement. Little did she know that every time I retreated to my room and closed the door, my tears would stop instantly, and a cold, sharp smile would spread across my face. I was tired of being a victim, and I had started a plan that I called the Great Equalizer. In the back of our garden shed, I had found an old bottle of Wasp trap solution. It was a thick, syrupy liquid that smelled like fermented fruit and sugar, and it was designed to attract every stinging insect for miles around. I had stashed the bottle under my bed on Monday morning. We shared a bathroom that sat between our two bedrooms, which made it easy for me to sneak in there when she was busy or sleeping. Starting on Monday night, I began my work. I took a small plastic bottle and filled it with a little bit of the Wasp trap solution. It was a golden amber color that looked almost like expensive hair oil. When I heard the shower running, I waited for her to finish and leave the bathroom. Then I would slip inside and take her bottle of high-end salon shampoo and her thick conditioner. I would add about a tablespoon of the sticky wasp attractant to each bottle and shake them vigorously until the liquid was fully incorporated. The shampoo was already a floral scent, so the sweet smell of the trap solution blended right in. I did this every single day of the week. By Thursday, the shampoo bottle was nearly half attractant and half soap. I was nervous, but the thought of the pain she had caused me gave me the courage to keep going. However, on Friday, things escalated to a point where I lost any shred of guilt I might have had. Sarah was frustrated because she could not find her favorite earrings, and she decided it was my fault. She cornered me at the top of the stairs, and her face was red with a rage I had never seen before. She grabbed me by the shoulders and shook me so hard my teeth rattled, and then she tried to kick me down the long wooden staircase. I managed to grab the banister just in time to stop myself from falling, but then she leaned in close to my ear and whispered that if I ever touched her things again, she would find a kitchen knife and stab me while I slept. She said it with such a flat, cold voice that I knew she meant it. I went to my room and I did not cry this time. I was done being scared. I reached into the back of my closet and pulled out a small plastic container that I had been keeping for an emergency. It contained my own urine, which I had been collecting for a day, and I had let it sit on the windowsill in the direct sun all afternoon so that it was warm and concentrated and smelled absolutely foul. I went into the bathroom one last time before the big concert. I poured the sun-baked urine into her shampoo and conditioner along with the rest of the Wasp trap solution. I knew that the chemicals in the shampoo would try to mask the smell, but the combination of the sugary attractant and the waste was a potent mix that would only get worse as it reacted with her body heat. I also knew that Sarah was planning to leave for the concert straight from a late shift at her summer job, which meant she would be in a massive rush to get ready. Everything went exactly as I hoped it would. On Saturday afternoon, Sarah came home from work in a whirlwind of chaos. She was screaming about being late and how her friends were going to leave without her if she did not hurry up. She flew into the bathroom and I heard the water turn on. I sat on my bed, clutching a pillow, and listening to the sound of her scrubbing her hair with the toxic mixture I had created for her. She was so rushed that she did not notice the slightly sticky texture of the soap or the fact that the bathroom started to smell like a dumpster in a candy factory. When she got out of the shower, she sprayed herself with half a bottle of cheap floral perfume, which she thought would make her smell like a garden. But I knew it would only provide a temporary cover for the biological disaster she had just rubbed into her scalp. She blow-dried her hair, which effectively baked the sugar and the urine into her hair follicles and the pores of her skin. The heat from the hairdryer must have been making the scent bloom, but she was so focused on her makeup that she didn't seem to notice. She threw on her outfit and ran out the door yelling at me to clean up the mess she left in the bathroom. As soon as her car pulled out of the driveway, I went into the bathroom. I took the bottles of shampoo and conditioner and poured out the remaining tainted liquid down the sink and rinsed it away with hot water. I replaced the liquid with a cheap flowery soap mixed with a little bit of water so that the bottles looked used but normal. I was covering my tracks so that if she suspected anything later, there would be no evidence left for her to find. Then I went out to the porch with Buster, and we sat together in the humid evening air waiting for the sun to go down. I imagined her at the concert venue, which was a large open field surrounded by woods and water. In the Midwest during the summer, those fields are crawling with yellow jackets and paper wasps and hornets. They are aggressive, and they love anything sweet or fermented. Sarah was now a walking lighthouse for every stinging insect within a 5-mile radius. Hours passed, and I felt a sense of calm I had never known. Around midnight, I heard her car screech into the driveway. The front door slammed open, and Sarah came bursting in, but she wasn't the confident queen bee who had left earlier. She was sobbing and flailing her arms around her head. She ran straight for our mother, who had just woken up from a nap on the couch. Sarah was covered in red welts. She had been stung on her neck, her forehead, and even behind her ears. She was hysterical, and she kept screaming about how the wasps wouldn't leave her alone. She said they followed her everywhere she went like they were possessed. She told my mother that even when she tried to hide in the middle of the crowd, the wasps would find her and dive into her hair. It was even worse than the stings, though, because of the social humiliation. Sarah confessed through her tears that her friends had started whispering about her half an hour after they arrived at the concert. They kept asking if anyone smelled something rotting or if there was a dead animal nearby. Eventually, one of her best friends told her to her face that she smelled like a wet dog that had been rolling in garbage and fermented fruit. Sarah was so embarrassed and so terrified of the swarms of insects that she had to leave the concert early and walk all the way back to the parking lot alone while being chased by a cloud of yellow jackets. She spent the next 2 weeks hiding in her room because she was so traumatized and her face was swollen from the stings. She didn't have the energy or the will to yell at me or hit me. For the first time in my life, I felt safe in my own home. My mother thought it was just a freak accident of nature, and she felt sorry for Sarah, but I knew better. I saw the way Sarah looked at her shampoo bottle a few days later with suspicion, but since I had replaced the contents, she found nothing wrong. She eventually convinced herself that it was just her perfume that had attracted the bugs, but she never wore that scent again. Now that I am 28 years old, I look back on that 12-year-old girl, and I do not feel a single bit of regret. People might say that what I did was dangerous or gross, but they did not live in that house with her. They did not feel the weight of her hand or the fear of her threats. She tried to take my life and my happiness, so I took her pride and gave her a lesson she would never forget. To this day, whenever I see a wasp trap hanging in a garden, I think of that night and the smell of cheap perfume and victory, and I can't help but smile. I learned that day that sometimes the only way to deal with a bully is to become something they can't handle. I turned her into a walking target, and in doing so, I finally found my own voice. We don't talk much anymore now that we are adults and live in different states, but I heard she still gets nervous whenever she hears the buzzing of a bee. That is a small price to pay for the years of pain she put me through. I live my life now with kindness and peace, but I always keep a sharp eye out for people like Sarah, and I know that I am no longer the helpless little girl I used to be. My Midwestern life is quiet now, but that secret remains tucked away in my heart like a trophy of the only time I ever decided to fight back and win. The town remains the same with its cornfields and its heat and its secrets, but I am different because I survived. I look at my reflection in the mirror, and I see a woman who knows how to protect herself. Sarah might have been the older sister, but I was the one who truly understood how the world works. You can only push someone so far before they turn around and show you exactly what they are capable of doing. The memory of her crying in her room while the smell of sun, baked urine, and fermented sugar faded into the carpet is one of my most cherished memories, and I would do it all over again in a heartbeat if I had to. It was not just about the wasps or the smell, it was about the moment I realized that I had power too. That realization changed me forever, and it made me the strong woman I am today. I still have a dog, though he is not Buster anymore, but a new friend named Scout, and we spend our evenings on my own porch far away from that old house. Sometimes in the summer when the cicadas get loud, I tell him the story of the girl who is a walking wasp trap, and I think he understands why I am smiling. Revenge might be a dish best served cold, but in the heat of a Midwestern summer, it tastes exactly like justice. I learned that you cannot change a person like Sarah, but you can certainly change the way they interact with you. She never laid a hand on me again after that week. Maybe she sensed that something in me had snapped, or maybe she was just too busy worrying about the next time the insects would come for her. Either way, I got my life back. I graduated high school and went to college and built a career for myself far away from the shadows of that farmhouse. I am Evelyn, and I am a survivor of a monster and the architect of my own freedom. The lessons I learned at 12 years old stayed with me. I learned that silence is not weakness and that planning is better than reacting. I learned that even the smallest person can take down a giant if they know where to aim. And most importantly, I learned that I never have to be afraid of Sarah ever again because I know her secret and she knows that I am not a victim anymore. Every time I see a country music concert on the television, I think of her standing in that field, surrounded by 1,000 angry wasps, and I feel a warmth in my chest that no summer sun could ever match. It was the perfect revenge for a girl who had nothing but her wits and a bottle of wasp trap solution. My sister Sarah taught me how to be afraid, but she also accidentally taught me how to be dangerous, and for that I suppose I should thank her, but I think the stings were thanks enough. Life in this small town taught me many things, but the story of the wasp trap is the one I will keep forever as a reminder that I am strong and I am capable, and I will never let anyone hurt me like that again. I am 28 years old now, and I am finally at peace. The long, hot days of my childhood are over, and I have stepped out of the shadow of my sister and into the light of my own making. I am the hero of my own story, and Sarah is just a fading memory of a girl who smelled like a dumpster and got what she deserved. The end of my story is not about hate, but about the reclamation of my own life. I am no longer the girl who hides in her room and cries. I am the woman who knows how to win. And as I sit here in my quiet home in the heart of the country, I know that I am exactly where I am supposed to be. The ghosts of the past are gone, and the only thing left is the sweet smell of the flowers in my garden and the quiet breathing of my dog at my feet. I am free, and that is the best revenge of all. I think about the many ways my life could have gone if I had not stood up for myself that week. I might have remained a broken person living in fear of my sister's next whim. I might have stayed in that town, forever trapped by the expectations of a mother who didn't see me and a sister who wanted to destroy me. But that one act of defiance changed the entire trajectory of my existence. It gave me a core of steel that has served me well in the decade and a half since it happened. When I faced difficult bosses or tough situations in my adult life, I always thought back to the Wasp trap. I told myself that if I could handle Sarah, I could handle anything. My career in social work now allows me to help other children who are going through similar things, and while I don't give them recipes for wasp attractants, I do give them the tools to find their own strength and their own voice. I tell them that their current situation is not their final destination. I am a living example of that truth. My sister Sarah eventually married a man who is just as loud and angry as she is, and they live a life full of conflict and drama in a town just like the one we grew up in. I see her posts on social media sometimes, and she looks older than she is, worn down by the very rage she used to use as a weapon. I don't feel pity for her, but I don't feel active hate anymore either. I just feel a sense of distance. We are two different species now. She is a predator who ran out of prey, and I am a bird who finally learned how to fly. My mother still calls me once a week, and we talk about the weather and the neighbors. She still doesn't know what happened that week, and she never will. Some secrets are meant to be kept forever, and this one is mine. It is a small dark jewel that I carry with me, a reminder of the time the world tried to break me, and I broke back. I think about the dog Buster sometimes, and I hope he knew that I was doing it for him too. I hope he felt the shift in the house when Sarah's power began to crumble. He was my only friend for a long time, and his pain was one of the biggest reasons I took action. In a way, the revenge was for every living thing Sarah had ever hurt. It was for the bruises and the insults and the fear. It was for the silence I had to maintain and the childhood I lost. But most of all, it was for me. It was the moment I chose myself over my fear. And that is a choice I will continue to make for the rest of my life. The Midwestern winds still blow across the fields, and the summer sun still bakes the ground, but I am no longer a part of that cycle of pain. I have built a life of my own making, and it is a good life. It is a life full of kindness and laughter and peace. And if I ever hear a buzzing sound in the distance, I just smile and keep walking, because I know that I am the one who holds the trap now. I am the one in control, and I will never give that up again. My name is Evelyn, and I am 28 years old, and I am finally free from the shadow of my sister. The revenge I took was a turning point, and I will never apologize for it. It was the spark that lit the fire of my independence, and that fire is still burning bright today. I am happy, and I am safe, and I am strong, and that is the only ending this story needs. I will always remember the look on her face when she came home that night, and it will always be a reminder that justice can be found in the most unexpected places, even in a bottle of wasp trap solution and a little bit of sun-baked urine. It was a long road to get here, but I made it, and I would do it all again. Every single bit of it. Because the woman I am today was forged in the fire of that week, and she is someone I am proud to be. The story of my revenge is the story of my survival, and it is a story that I will carry with pride for the rest of my days. I look out at the horizon, and I see nothing but possibility, and that is the greatest gift I could have ever given myself. The past is behind me, and the future is mine to write. And I am going to make it a beautiful one. For Buster, and for the 12-year-old girl who finally learned how to fight back, and for the woman who walked away and never looked back. This is my story, and it is a story of victory. My sister might have been the bully, but I was the winner in the end. And that is all that matters. The world is a big place, and I am finally ready to see all of it, without fear, without hesitation, and without ever looking over my shoulder again. I am Evelyn, and I am whole.